This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
What's up, Detroit sports fans? Welcome back to the Fan Reporter Show, made by fans for fans, powered by the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I'm Nick, and sitting right across from me is my boy Andrew, who's going to give us this week's topics.
On today's show, we talk about some potential offseason acquisitions by the Pistons that have been thrown around by fans and analysts alike. We also revisit the Calvin Johnson Detroit Lions debacle after the issue resurfaced in a recent Free Press interview. So, a couple really interesting topics today, so let's get into it.
All right, do you want to start with Lions or do you want to start with Pistons today, my dude?
Let's start with the Pistons. We'll close out with some Calvin talk.
All right, fair enough. Interesting, though, about the Calvin talk. It's kind of gone very 50-50 with the fans. I'll kind of mention some of the things I heard in a little bit, but starting with the Pistons here. Excuse me.
It's not who's right, it's like who looks worse. It's basically what it is.
At this point, yes. It's very, like, Laguna Beach-esque. Like, or Jersey Shore. Like, it's really like reality TV petty type bullshit.
Could this be another story? I mean, it has nothing to do with Hard Knocks, but do you think Hard Knocks could find a way to play it into their show?
I would hope they wouldn't.
Yeah.
Honestly, though, okay, I'll save my thoughts because I have a lot of thoughts about it, but I'll save them for the actual part of the topic. But it's very petty on each end. Yeah. But so Pistons talk here. Obviously, with the draft coming up here in a hurry. I mean, we're only a couple weeks away, and then free agency is going to get booming right after that. So, and obviously that means trade talk. I mean, trade season has begun. I don't know if you saw the troll job by Blake Griffin yesterday. I think it was putting the eyes, and then it just so happened that Trae Young tweeted something about how it's funny how things can change so quickly or something like that. But if you go back to another podcast that Blake Griffin did, I think it was Pardon My Take or something like that.
Okay.
He even mentioned that he was going to just mess with people and say he was going to just tweet out the eye emoji.
Yeah, just to mess with everyone freaks out when that happens.
Right. And it just so happened to time up so perfectly with the Trae Young tweet that and then you had Barstool throw around, or some guy from Barstool throw around the trade rumors of Blake Griffin to the Hawks, and someone else mentioned it, and it kind of caught some legs. It was mentioned on the radio this morning, and I just thought it was really entertaining because it all stemmed basically from like a total troll job by Blake Griffin, which honestly I find absolutely hilarious, especially the fans that bought into it. It was never going to happen.
Yeah.
But and the sources that it came from were just, but anyways, other than Blake Griffin potentially being traded, which obviously will not happen, there are rumors, and there's been a lot of, now mind you, I can't really say these rumors are legitimate, or even anything that's ever been mentioned between the two teams. These are all rumors that are thrown around by speculators on Twitter, people that just throw out an article to say a what if kind of thing. We see a lot of those in the NBA's journalism or journalistic side. So one of them was obviously we have the one that's actually legitimate here, which is whether or not the Pistons will be trading for Mike Conley.
Yep.
And what kind of package he would require, and whether or not the Grizzlies want to move on from him, or if they want him to mentor their, the young guard they're going to be taking, Ja Morant.
And the reason it's legitimate is because the Pistons have already reportedly gone after Mike Conley.
Right. I mean, the Pistons have been going after Mike Conley for like 2 years now. Yeah. I mean, he's been on the radar forever. I mean, I'm pretty sure we were talking about Mike Conley last offseason. And then again at the deadline, and now obviously we're going to start talking about him again as soon as the league year turns over. But what kind of package would it take from the Pistons to get a guy like Mike Conley? And do you think it would be worth it for the Pistons to take on not only the contract of Mike Conley, but the age and the often injured aspect of his later years in his career, and what could he bring positive to the team, or would it just be a flat out negative?
Well, if we want to talk about packages, we can just go back to what they were talking about at the trade deadline, where we had reportedly offered Jackson and our first round pick, Reggie Jackson, and our first round pick, and Memphis wanted to throw in Luke Kennard as well. So you would think that it'd be a package somewhere around that, a point guard and Reggie, one of our young guys, plus probably our first this year, or depending on when it gets done, maybe our first next year. And as far as would I want to do it, no. Reason being age and injury history with Mike Conley. He's 31 years old. He gets hurt an awful lot. Number two is how much he's going to cost. Not cost in how much you're going to have to give up to him. Cost in the fact that his contract.
Between Drummond, Blake, and Conley, you're going to tie up. It's something like 60% of your salary cap in the upcoming season. That's a lot.
Yeah,
that doesn't leave a lot of room to have any kind of serviceable players outside that.
It's three guys going to be playing $30+ million a year.
Exactly, and it's also.
Actually, Drummond might be just below.
I think Drummond's just below. I think he's going to be at 26 or 27. But it's a situation where it doesn't solve arguably your biggest pressing need going into the offseason and coming into next year, which is you don't have a wing. You legitimately do not have a true wing on your roster. And this makes it even harder for them to solve that problem. Because you lock your financial abilities even further long term by bringing this guy in here. I mean, you're locked in for 2 years at minimum. For 2 more years at minimum with those three guys as your big three.
Yeah.
And I'll ask you right now, if the Pistons were to have Mike Conley, Blake Griffin, and Andre Drummond in the here and now, is that any better than what the Clippers had in Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan? And I'll tell you right now, it's not.
No,
it's not any better. And what did that team do successfully? Nothing.
Around the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing. It never. I mean, granted, don't get me wrong. Blake Griffin's a far different and, in my opinion, a smarter and better player.
Yep.
But is Andre Drummond better than DeAndre Jordan at those times? Maybe at times, yes. But is Mike Conley of this day and age better than the Chris Paul was then? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Chris Paul was one of the top point guards in the NBA at that point in time. Mike Conley, I don't even consider to be anywhere close to that. Maybe top 10. He's not top 5.
Fringe all-star.
Yeah, fringe all-star. Chris Paul was like a top 3 point guard in the game.
Yeah.
And then you have to add in the other aspects of that roster that were built around them that Pistons just don't have.
Yeah, like don't get us wrong. Mike Conley is a very good point guard, but he's not $30 million a year good.
Not a guy at the age of 32 next year. At the age of 32 next year, that's costing you that kind of money that also has been hurt the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Plus, you add in the fact that Blake Griffin, this is the first season.
He had a decently healthy year this year.
That's the first season in how long, though?
He played 12 games in 2017, 2018. He did play 69 games in 2016, 2017. The year before that, he played 56 games. So
the stat was Derrick Rose had played more basketball in the previous 3 years than Blake Griffin did. Derrick frickin' Rose.
We're talking about Blake Griffin or talking about Conley?
Blake Griffin.
Oh, I was talking about Conley.
I know, but I'm just saying that you got to compound these injury issues. So you're bringing 2 often injured guys into your quote unquote big 3.
Yeah,
it's kind of setting yourself up for a disaster situation, if you ask me, because you don't have the flexibility to have an insurance policy there.
Yeah,
I understand the look on paper; it looks pretty, but get up close to it and it gets real ugly. It's kind of like it's kind of like the chick you see from afar at the park, and you see her stretching, kind of working out a little bit, and you go, "Damn, she looks good." But as soon as you start kind of approaching her and you start seeing some of the things that don't look so nice. Maybe she's got a really bad attitude. Or she just doesn't look good. It's kind of like that. That's what I see here with this, with the potential with this roster. Because we start seeing the flaws. Mike Conley's not the best ball distributor. He's not the best at staying healthy.
Yeah.
Neither is Blake Griffin. His contract is abysmal. And it's long term. I mean, there's a lot of situations here that are big-time negatives when it comes to Mike Conley. And to give you an example of what we're looking at in terms of packages to get him, so obviously you mentioned the first-round pick and Luke Kennard and Reggie Jackson.
Correct.
The Pistons do have a little bit more flexibility this offseason in terms of what they can trade because of the expiring deals. Those are enticing to a rebuilding team. Big time. It's automatic money coming off your books at the end of the year. One package that I'm seeing on for Mike Conley here is from the Big Lead. So this is an article from them. It was posted probably pretty recently, May 22nd. Okay. So fairly recently. And the package that they've got on here from the Pistons is Because obviously the Pistons are not going to be trading Luke Kennard. They like him a lot, and I really hope to God they don't trade Luke Kennard. That's honestly where I balk at any trade.
Well, that's where they balked. So
right, and they should. But Reggie Jackson, John Lure in a first rounder to get Mike Conley. You may have to include a young player in there. Maybe a Bruce Brown probably is another package that I've seen.
John
I don't
Lure's
remember.
only value is his expiring
His expiring deal. But maybe like a Bruce Brown could be added on there as well if you're the Grizzlies and you want a young talent out of there. But I don't want the Pistons to trade Bruce Brown either. I like Luke Kennard and Bruce Brown, and honestly, his offensive game can be developed.
Yeah.
That's one thing is he's got the ability to develop an outside shot, an ability to develop something with his offensive game to make him a useful piece.
It's a long ways away, but
it is a decent ways away. But I mean, we've seen a couple flashes here and there.
Yeah.
He's shown an ability to hit it from outside. So if it's there, it's there, and it just can be blossomed. And with the right coaching and the right mentality, he can make it blossom. But I mean, in all honesty, though, is that trade package any better than what what some of the other teams that would be interested in him can give them? I mean, the Phoenix Suns came out today and said that they're willing to move their number 6 overall pick to get a veteran point guard, which makes absolutely no sense to me. But they're willing to do that. Obviously, the two big-name veteran point guards on the market are Mike Conley and Chris Paul, which are, coincidentally, two of the guys we're going to be talking about today. So if Mike Conley's the guy they're going for number 6 overall,
the Suns would be so dumb to do that because they get such a veteran, aging, and such an older point guard with such a young core.
I know. Which you can argue that get a little bit of that veteran mentality to kind of coach these players up on the floor.
Eventually, you have to replace
the
point guard before you're ready to make a run for your championship.
And then they're right back where they started, just with different veterans, and now they got to replace a point guard, probably with a young guy when they could have just gotten him to begin with. But is the Pistons package of Jackson, Lure, and a first-round pick, number 15 overall, better than the number 6 overall pick for Mike Conley? I'm going to say no.
No.
Not in this draft. Definitely not in this draft, because 15 is
I would
garbage
right
in
now
comparison.
trade Reggie, Lure, and our first for the number 6 pick.
You'd be lucky to get them to say yes for that.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying, though, is the value that's there and what you're giving and what you would be offering the Grizzlies for Mike Conley. Would you take the Mike Conley situation out of it? Would the Suns accept your trade package for theirs? The answer is no, absolutely not.
Which, in theory, if you really were trying to pursue Mike Conley, you'd end up overpaying if you're competing with a team like the Suns.
Exactly. And so, frankly, I don't think that the Pistons are willing to put out enough of a trade package to get Mike Conley. Now, are the Suns willing to part from number 6 for Mike Conley? That's they may have one guy in mind. That one guy is probably Chris Paul, but I don't think it is. I wouldn't make that trade.
Well, speaking of Chris Paul, that's the other guy that's been floated around with the turmoil over in Houston and the rumors that Daryl Morey wants to kind of blow it all up. Many Pistons.
I don't get it.
I mean, many Pistons fans have been clamoring for Chris Paul, saying that we should go out and grab Chris Paul. We can go out and grab Chris Paul. This is another one that I say is just.
I've been seeing it thrown around on Twitter.
This is another one that I think is just off base, and for some similar reasons, and Conley some different. Similar reasons, again, an aging point guard. Aging point guard older than Conley. He's like 35
often
now?
Injured, and his contract is ungodly awful.
Exactly.
Like, I'm pretty sure he'll be making like $48 million in the final year of his contract. Holy hell. That's insane.
I can tell you right now how much he's going to make.
I'm pretty sure it's upwards of like 45, 48 mil. Something stupid.
If Morey wants to blow it all up, you could theoretically say you might be able to get Chris Paul cheap in a trade. But
the packages I've seen for Chris Paul have been pretty pretty small but in comparison to what I've seen for Conley.
Yeah,
and it's mainly because of the contract and because of the fact that he's 33 and because of the fact he's often injured.
So you're going to be paying Chris Paul next season $38.5 million, $38.5. 2021 $41.4 million.
Ouch.
21-22 $44.2 million. Before it comes off the books at the end of 2022.
You mean to tell me you'll have almost $100 million tied up in 3 guys? And in all honesty, again, going back to that Clippers comparison, which Tom Gores in this front office seems so badly to want to build, is it better than what the Clippers had that did nothing? No. Because that Chris Paul is far and away better than this version of Chris Paul.
Yeah.
That Blake Griffin, depending on health, I personally prefer this Blake Griffin. The way he's reinvented his game is incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. And it actually, in my opinion, would make that version of the Big Three a little bit more dangerous because they have a little bit more of an outside scoring threat. They have a little more spacing there.
Yeah.
That Blake Griffin didn't have as much floor spacing as this one does. So having that extra space would help a little bit. But Chris Paul's nowhere near that one. And again, the DeAndre Jordan argument, it's take your pick of the week.
Yeah. And I just can't because in the 2022 season he's going to be 36 years old. I just can't imagine paying a 36-year-old point guard $44.2 million.
Heck no. Heck no. You
and another
kidding me?
off-injured point guard of that too.
And plus, he's a locker room problem. He's a problem in the locker room.
I haven't heard much of Chris Paul.
Oh, you didn't hear about what happened after Game 6 between him and Harden? That's like the whole reason this whole thing's blowing up. Dude, they were screaming at each other. And they've constantly butted heads with each other. And it's always Chris Paul. It's never... See, one thing you'll always notice about a Chris Paul interview, it's never his fault when they lose. Never. He will find the nearest person to him and blame him every way he can.
But he was never a problem on the Clippers.
Oh, yes, he was. He was still a problem with chemistry in terms of blaming everybody else. He'd find a way to blame the ball boy before he'd take the blame himself. I can guarantee you that. Or the kids wiping the floor. He'd say, oh, they didn't wipe the floor. That's why I lost the ball. The ball was slippery. It fell in a puddle. He would find a way to blame anybody else in the building before he'd blame himself. He never takes the blame for anything. Oh, it was James Harden's fault. It was Mike D'Antoni's fault. It was Daryl Morey's fault for the way he built this team. It's never Chris Paul's fault in his eyes. And you know damn well that's going to rub teammates the wrong way. And I'll tell you right now, I don't even know if Blake Griffin wants to play with Chris Paul again. That ended kind of pretty sourly. So you may have some issues there as well.
And then teams that are reportedly eyeing Paul or could be eyeing Chris Paul include Charlotte, Miami, and then the big markets of the Lakers and the Knicks. So you're already going to have a lot to compete with the Lakers and Knicks. Charlotte...
I'm sorry, in terms of...
They're not willing to part with Kemba Walker as far as I know. So
he's
a
free agent, I thought.
I know, but I thought they were re-signing him.
Good luck.
I know. I thought they were ready to shell out for Kemba Walker. That's what
I'm sure they're going to offer him a Supermax. Yeah. He's probably going to say, take a walk. So why would he want to continue to play in Charlotte? I mean, in all honesty, they can offer him the Supermax. He wants to play to win somewhere. And
either way,
after his season last year, for good reason.
Yeah. But... yeah, you can theoretically compete with the likes of Charlotte and Miami, but if the Lakers or Knicks get in on the Chris Paul race, you're not competing with them. I'm sorry.
If any of those teams that are near the top of the lottery, or in the lottery for that matter, in the race for Chris Paul,
Miami as well, like a couple picks out of us, it's not that much of a game changer, but
yes, but they've got other assets they can offer that we don't.
Are high lottery.
They've got other assets that they'd be willing to offer that we don't. Now the whole situation, because I believe Clint Capella is a free agent also. The whole situation with Hassan Whiteside, the rumor's been that Hassan Whiteside would be a guy that they'd have to match just for salary reasons for Miami. They've been one that has been thrown out there quite a bit. But, again, most of these teams have...
Capella's not a free agent until 2023, but he's been rumored in trades.
Okay, yeah, that's what it was. Is they're literally rumored to be trading everybody outside of James Harden. So Chris Paul, Clint Capella's been rumored in trades. And so has Eric Gordon. Honestly, I'll tell you right now, I'd rather Eric Gordon than Chris Paul for the Pistons. He's a scorer off the bench. He'd be electric for us. It'd be a nice piece that you could plug in there. You may even decide to start him so that you can.
He's a handful of years younger.
He is a handful of years younger. He's still fairly expensive, if I recall, but he's scoring off the bench. Or even if you wanted to start him and have Kennard remain off the bench, he's shooting and outside shooting at that. I mean, I can't name a team in the league that wouldn't love to have an Eric Gordon on their roster. I mean, he's a perennial Sixth Man of the Year candidate.
So Eric Gordon will cost you slightly more than what we're paying John Lure right now.
So about 12 mil, 11 mil?
He'll cost you, well, he only has 1 year left on his contract. Because his contract started at 12 mil, but his last year in his contract, which would be this coming year, is $14 million.
Okay.
And then he comes off the books in 2020.
Okay.
So he's an expiring deal, technically.
But I would prefer Eric Gordon over Chris Paul, personally.
Paying him over less time. He's younger.
Yeah, and not a problem.
Probably come a little bit cheaper, like
in
the
terms
actual
of free
trade
agency,
pieces. Wise. No,
yeah. Oh yeah. I don't see a guy on the trade market in terms of a point guard that the Pistons can go after. At least not a vet point guard that would fix their problem.
Yeah,
and do it in a reasonably priced situation. I mean, maybe if the Bucks were willing to part with Eric Bledsoe, if that wasn't working there, maybe the Pistons could look at that. But there's another often injured guy. That'd be one that could be use in this on the floor for them. I mean, he is a good two-way point guard. He did struggle in the playoffs, but he would be an upgrade.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. I mean, maybe going after a guy like Dennis Schroeder and giving him an opportunity. But again, he seems happy where he's at, and the team seems to love him. So, again, you're hard-pressed to find a point guard that's on the trade market that you're going to be willing to go and grab and do it at a reasonable price, not just in terms of trade value, but also in terms of his contract, because you still have to build the rest of your roster here. You still have to add wings.
Yeah.
Notice the plural, wings, to this roster. You have zero, nada, right now.
I'd expect at least one to come via the draft.
I would sure hope so. I mean, the recent drafts have seen a lot of people throwing bull at them. What does that do for their roster? Put a log jam at the backup center position? Wonderful. Yeah. Just what we need, more people in a dying position in the NBA. It's frustrating.
Yeah.
But I really want to see this team make a hard push going after wings this free agent, this offseason, whether it be through free agency, through trades, through the draft. I want to see a hard push for a wing. Yeah. Now, if Reggie Jackson plays the way he did last year and continues to build upon his previous season, I'd be fine with him being our point guard for this season. Fine. Not happy, but fine with it. Are there several upgrades to him? Yes, absolutely, especially at his price point. But if he builds upon his season last year, remains healthy, and continues to get better, I'm fine with it.
Yeah,
I'd welcome it. As long as it meant that we spent the assets that we have to build the wing position on several sides to make this team better overall.
Yeah.
Because that's, in my opinion, their most pressing need. Because what's the most important position in the NBA today? It's the wing. That's where a lot of your scoring comes from. It's where a lot of your offense is generated, and it's where a lot of your defense. It's the swing position. Yeah. Your two-way players come in that spot. The Jimmy Butlers, the Kawhi Leonards, the Kevin Durant's.
In the positionless league that we're looking at right now, that's
the wing is extremely important.
Defensive versatility is insanely important.
I mean, hell, look at the way Pascal Siakam dominated Game 1. He's a wing player. He's a bigger wing, but he's a wing. Look at the way he dominated the position. Look at the way he dominated that game. Yep. He won the game for Toronto. Kawhi struggled. It was all Siakam. And when Siakam struggled in Game 2, look what happened. They lost. The wing position is so immensely important in this league. You need to have them. To have a roster that quite literally has zero wings is... Like, if they go into next season with zero wings again, that's a fireable offense in my opinion. That is absolutely asinine.
Agreed.
You can't win in the NBA with zero wings on your roster. You need it. So enough with this talk about going after Mike Conley or Chris Paul. Find a wing. Find two. Please. Make it happen. One way or another.
Speaking of wings, you can consider this kind of wing technically. One guy that has been rumored to be interested in a reunion with the team is Reggie Bullock. This is according to James Edwards III from The Athletic, saying, before the trade, a source close to Bullock said the 28-year-old was willing to return to the Pistons once he had unrestricted free agency if the, quote, money was right. Bullock became, at minimum, a more than serviceable role player in the 3.5 seasons of Detroit, and he appreciated the opportunity given to him by the organization. The source also said that Bullock enjoyed his role as a second fiddle to Blake Griffin in the Pistons' off-to-use DHO actions, which means It's that handoff play, the dribble handoff.
Yeah.
Furthermore, Bullock is fond of the Michigan lifestyle. I don't know why that's important for the source.
I mean, it kind of is important just because if the guy doesn't like living there, he's not going to like playing there because he's going to go into work miserable. He's gonna it's going to be one of those things where you dread driving into work.
Yeah,
and you don't ever want to have the mentality walking into a basketball facility and you hate the fact that you're where you're at.
Yeah. So he closes by saying that again, if you willing to return the Pistons as a free agent, if again the finances were in order. Bullock's been in the league since 2013, hasn't made more than $2.5 million in a season. Is Bullock a guy you'd be willing to bring back, and how much would you be willing to pay for him?
Not a lot. I would welcome him back, not as a starting wing, but as a bench wing that plays 15, 20 minutes a game. I think he'd be a serviceable player in this team as a two-way player.
He provided some really much-needed scoring when he was on the team.
He can. Yeah. He's capable of it. He's very inconsistent, but he is capable of it. He does have an outside shot that's there.
Yeah.
And makes itself definitely there at times. But I'm not really willing to give him the full MLE, the full mid-level exception. I'm willing to give him a portion of that mid-level exception as long as we can use the rest of it to grab a guy like Seth Curry or someone to kind of bolster the rest of our bench. If you told me that the Pistons used their mid-level exception to bring back Reggie Bullock and sign Seth Curry to this roster for next season,
I would love to have Seth Curry here.
I think that right there, that'd be a success.
Yeah.
If you ask me, that'd be a success because it fills two needs in terms of a backup point guard and a wing player, and then you can go and grab another wing in the draft or best player available if you so be it. I think that'd be a success because it fills two needs immediately with a rule essentially that is there so you can fill holes.
Yeah.
And I think that'd just be an absolute success in my mind. Again, I'm not willing to give him a ton of money. I'm willing to give him a portion of that MLE to make it happen, make him happy here. If he likes it here, well, you may have to give in a little bit on his end too. The Pistons aren't exactly a rich team.
I wonder what he's expecting when he says like if the money's right. Like what is he expecting to get paid? Because he didn't once he got traded from
I'll tell you,
Pistons to the Lakers.
I don't even
do anything Lakers.
No.
Partly because he wasn't getting much of an opportunity with the Lakers, but
I'll tell you, I don't know if he's worth more than like a $5 million 1 year deal. Like that even seems
more than he's ever made in the season.
That seems even on the high
double
end.
What he's made in the season.
I know that seems on the high end for me. Like I'd give him 3.
Yeah.
I'd be happy giving him 3, but it just depends on what he's looking for. Obviously, he can't name a dollar figure until the year's over, but I'd be curious to find out what the dollar. If the dollar is right means, what that means to him in terms of how much money he wants. And again, frankly, I'd be comfortable giving him $3 million a year. I don't know if I'd give him much more than that, but you may be willing to bend a little bit, provided that you can still use, the rest of your flexibility to bring in a backup point guard. Yeah. I throw the name Seth Curry out because that's the hottest name that's been thrown out by Pistons fans, but depending on how much money you give Reggie Bullock, you may not be able to give Seth Curry enough money.
Yeah.
So you gotta put your priorities in line here and understand what you need to do.
Exactly. I view Reggie Bullock as a guy I would like to bring back as long as there's enough money remaining after we got our big targets to bring back. I would love to.
I agree with that. He's kind of a roster filler guy. He'll play impactful
Not that
minutes.
we have the money to really play around this offseason.
Right. But he will play some. I mean, they will if they are willing to move on from some of their deals, essentially. I mean, the money does have to square up, but you can make, you can finagle some things to work here.
Yeah.
But I don't know if
next offseason will be the big one for the Pistons.
Provided they don't take on another big contract, which is entirely it should be. If everything stays in line the way it is, you have $30 some odd million coming off the books next year.
Yeah.
So, but again, Reggie Bullock would be a really solid filler piece for the Pistons roster that would play some impactful minutes for him, and I'd welcome him back home with open arms. I liked Reggie Bullock.
Let's move on to the NFL and the Detroit Lions. So, Calvin Johnson recently resurfaced. The news story about Calvin Johnson recently resurfaced when he was being interviewed by the Free Press, and they asked him about the possibility of renewing with the team or becoming a team ambassador, to use nostalgia and to help with team marketing. He says they already know what they got to do. The only way they're going to get me back is that they put that money back in my pocket. Now, you don't do that. I don't care what they say. They can put it back, then they can have me back. That's the bottom line. So
yeah, you said put the money back in my pocket.
So basically, for anyone who's not familiar, what happened a couple years ago when Calvin retired unexpectedly. The Lions took back the $1 million bonus. That
the $1 million is not an exact dollar amount.
I know, like approximately.
The report is it is something north of $1 million, and under the league rules, they could take back up to $3.5 million.
Yeah.
So it's rumored that it's somewhere north of $1 million. What the exact dollar figure is, we have no idea. So it's somewhere between $0 and $3.5 million.
Yeah.
Likely $1 million and $3.5 million is what we're looking at.
And so they took it back. It was a portion of non-guaranteed money that was
the signing bonus.
Yeah, that he basically forfeited by retiring early and not filling his contract.
And basically it allowed the Lions to add that money back to their salary cap for the next season to go and make an offseason acquisition and add to the roster.
Now, this is normally business as usual, but you see a lot of teams when it comes to generational talents or players that had a lot of
I've actually tried to research on how many teams, and what teams do certain practices. The only one I could really find any kind of data on, I guess, is the Steelers. Art Rooney, or the Rooney family, and the Steelers organization is really known for taking care of their guys. I mean, they're still paying Ryan Shazier. And they're big time players. When they retire, they tend to just let them keep their signing bonus and take care of them. Yeah. But there was an organization in the same offseason as Calvin retiring, or maybe a year later when all this stuff started coming out, that they took back a signing bonus from a team. I mean, this is standard practice. It happens all the time, even with stars or non-stars. It just depends on the organization and the player. That's all.
But you would think that a guy like Calvin, who not only one of the best wide receiver in Lions history, but one of the best receivers of all time, would have they would have been appreciative to at least give him to at least not.
I mean, that's debatable.
Yeah,
it's big time debatable.
On both sides, because
there's a lot of arguments on both sides. I'll tell you right now, a lot of Lions fans are not happy with Calvin for this.
Yeah, but so I'm saying you would have hoped that the Lions would have done that as an act of gratitude. At the same time, you would have hoped that Calvin would be petty enough with how much the Lions have paid him
in his career.
How much Lions have paid him over the years to not squabble over $1 million. But
I can see both sides of this.
Exactly.
And when I mentioned before that there's a lot of mixed responses from Lions fans. I mean, a lot of people were texting into the ticket this morning saying, "Screw Calvin. He didn't fulfill his contractual duties. It's within the rights. It's within the league rules, within the rights of the Lions. They should take it back. He left. He didn't earn that money. He doesn't deserve it." Those were a lot of the responses I heard, and I mean back to back to back to back. A lot of people calling in saying, "Screw him. He shouldn't. If he doesn't ever want to come back, fine, so be it." I mean, a lot of people were doing it. I know what the Lions are trying to do here by bringing him back. They're trying to do what they're doing, what they've been doing with Barry Sanders, but using Calvin to be a little bit more of a bridge to the younger Lions fans as an ambassador to the millennials. And the Generation Zs, whatever the hell generation we're on now, that were fans of his, because those people never saw Barry play. They know who he is. They never saw him play. So he'd be this younger generation's ambassador to the team. He'd be the guy that they'd send out for a public appearance and have signed autographs and say, "Hey, come to a Lions game. Yippee-ki-yay."
I'm sure they want the same with Calvin.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what they want with Calvin. That's what they're doing, is they want him to be this generation's Barry Sanders.
Yeah. And guess what? They did the same thing with Barry Sanders as far as the contract. They took back his signing bonus.
Again, it's within their right to do that. And it technically, in a way, helps the team by doing that, because they are able to then take the money towards their salary cap and add to their roster, which I don't know what they did with it, frankly. I don't know, and I don't care to look because it was probably insignificant, but it's still something that's within the league rules, and a lot of Lions fans are saying, screw them. And again, I can see that argument. He's being petty about this. Dude made $114 million in his career. What is $1 million more? I mean, I get, and then going on the other side, dude, $1 million or $2 million bucks is pennies on the dollar for Martha Ford.
Exactly.
She's a billionaire. It's billionaires paying millionaires is a nice quote from Mike Valenti today. I mean, So what is that money to her? I mean, to the Lions organization in terms of their salary cap, it means a little bit more because, you only get so much. But again, maybe you find ways to pay them that, doesn't hurt your cap or whatever. Yeah. Maybe you say, all right, you go do this. We'll start, paying you, giving you some money to be an ambassador. I don't know. Maybe he's not willing to do that until they pay him. Yeah. And if that's the case, honestly, at that point, if he's not willing to work with the Lions organization at all, I'd say let him ride off into the sunset. See ya. Because you got to have some compromise on both ends here. If you're the each team, if you're each party here, because frankly, this whole thing is a petty party.
Yeah, it is.
It's he said, she said. Oh, he's not doing what I want. Oh, they're not doing. It's literally preschool, middle school type stuff.
It's the rich counting pennies.
Yes, it's two rich parties here fighting over chump change to them. What is an extra $1 million to 114? What is an extra $1 million to billions? And honestly, in terms of the mass media, this looks so bad for the Lions organization. So bad. They look like children. You know how we've been talking about how the Lakers organization has looked like children in the whole, oh, he's being mean to me, talking behind my back. This looks bad too. This looks real bad. Because it's constant pettiness going back and forth between the two, refusing to compromise, refusing to handle this like adults. You know why you don't hear about these types of things from other organizations? Because they act like adults when they do their business. I love my Lions, man, but they have not handled this well, and neither has Calvin. Nobody has in this situation. Nobody. Going to the media and saying all this stuff and yelling about the organization and the organization fighting back, yelling back through the media. How about you sit down in an office together and talk man to man? Rod Wood, Calvin, and woman to man, Martha Ford. Handle this like adults. Stay out of the media. Yeah, you look bad.
That's what I was going to ask you next. If you're Rob Wood, Bob Quinn, whoever is in charge of making these decisions, how are you handling
It'd be
this?
Rod Wood.
How are you handling this?
I'm making a phone call to Calvin and saying, hey, let's take this out of the media. Let's handle this like big people. We're grown-ups. Let's handle this like that. Let's compromise. Grown-ups, compromise. You work with us, we'll work with you. We want you back home where you belong. Let's make this happen. You want the money? We'll get you the money. But you got to do some things for us, too. You got to become this ambassador for us. Make a couple public appearances. We'll dole it out to you in stipends. Go do a jersey signing or an autograph signing thing at a local sports store. Go make an appearance for us at a car dealership or something. And then we'll start paying you in installments here.
Get more than $1 million.
And installments here, and we'll pay you back the money you're asking for.
And some, probably.
Potentially. I don't know technically, legally, if they're allowed to get paid for these appearances. But that can totally be something within the rules and be off the books. Yeah. I mean, technically on the books, but not necessarily on the books for that reason. And he's an ambassador to the team, and you're paying him back the money.
I agree with you. I think it's a perfectly fair solution. Has it been discussed? I have no idea.
I would sure hope so. I mean, if one of the parties
rule nothing out with this organization, let's be honest.
True. But if one of these parties is outright just refusing to work with the other until the other one bends entirely, that's not how grown-ups handle their business.
Yeah.
That's not how you do things as an adult. And at that point, I got no sympathy for you. Yeah. If you're refusing to handle this like an adult would, then take a walk. Whoever you are, whether it's Rod Wood or Martha Ford or Calvin. If you're refusing to handle this like an adult, you can go ahead and just take a long walk off a short pier.
Your favorite phrase again. Speaking of handling things like an adult, news that just broke while we were on the show. Darius Slay is reportedly not going to go to mandatory minicamp. He was asked and he said, I don't know, I ain't going. Hey, man, I'm chilling, man. So... he's one of,
oh boy, that does not look good.
He's one of two players, him and Snacks Harrison, that skipped OTAs.
Disgruntled with their contract situation. They want extensions.
Yep. But what do you think about Darius Slay skipping mandatory minicamp?
Yikes. That's not a good look.
Hard Knocks is coming.
I'll be honest with you.
But again, Hard Knocks is nothing to do. They don't do contracts here. They normally so.
I'll be honest with you. Hard Knocks is stupid not to pick the Lions at this point. It was announced today that the Redskins were sort of announced. It was rumored today that the Redskins were eliminated from the talk. So leaving the Lions and the Raiders. It'd be stupid for Hard Knocks not to do the Lions this year, so that they can do the Raiders next year. Because a Hard Knocks season in the opening year of Vegas football for the Raiders would just be big lights.
Yeah.
Big parties galore.
I agree 100% with that.
I understand the whole bye-bye Oakland aspect you can spin it with, but the welcome to Vegas aspect screams a lot louder.
Yeah.
And I think they'd be dumb not to take advantage of that opportunity. So start, wiping off the rugs in Allen Park, because Hard Knocks should be coming in pretty soon.
So let me ask you this before we close out. So Darius Slay, 28 years old, set to make just over $13 million this year and then $10.5 in 2020.
I'll be honest with you.
So by the time he's off the books, you're paying him, with the current contract, you're paying a 30-year-old safety, 30-year-old corner, $10.5 million.
I thought it would be 29 at that point.
He's 28 right now. Well, yeah, he could be 29. Yeah. I don't know when his
29 turning 30.
Yeah.
We'll say that.
Yeah.
Honestly, for what he's been in this organization, what he is, pay the man. Give him an extra couple of years on his deal. Get that extension going. Let him stay until he's 32 years old. At that point, maybe you look elsewhere. He's probably not going to be as good.
Early 30s is like peak for peak, it's end of the road usually by end of
unless
30s.
You're a guy like Chris Harris who just seems to be timeless.
Yeah.
But at that point, you look elsewhere. But give him an extra couple of years of an extension, and you'll make him happy. You'll be happy because you got a Pro Bowl caliber or an All Pro caliber corner for years to come. I mean, pay the man. I don't see why not. He's an every down corner. He makes big plays for you. That's why his name is Big Play Slay. That's one guy, in my opinion, that's a no-brainer. Pay the man. It's a no-brainer. I mean, how many times in this organization's history have we had a corner of that caliber? He's better than Trey Bly. So, I mean, you got to go way back. You got to go way back. And there's a guy who didn't even like being here. So you got to go way back.
Oh, and Slay loves being here.
I know. He loves this fan base.
He was actually just on. I think Instagram Live the other day. He said, "I love my fans. I love Detroit. I'm telling y'all, Detroit got the best fans in the world, man. Y'all got some crazy ones now, but y'all are the best ones now. Y'all are the best fans in the world.
Y'all got some crazy ones. Yeah, find a fan base that's actually passionate, and you'll find crazy fans.
Yeah.
Go to New York, Jesus, or Boston. But in terms of Slate, pay the man.
Yeah,
he deserves it. He's earned it. He's a damn good player. He's a leader on your defense. He makes plays happen. Pay the man. Honestly, my opinion, Snacks I'm a little bit more hesitant to pay just because of his age. But I'd pay him too. I'd give him an extra year or two. Yeah, or if you want to play the game that I saw the other day and you don't want to keep him into his old age, fully guarantee the rest of his contract. That'll make him happy. It's got the money guaranteed then. He may be willing to budge on that. That's, again, compromising like adults. Compromise. I understand that's a big. I understand that's a big word in 2019 when it comes to the NFL. Frankly, just the society in general. But compromise.
Yeah.
In terms of Slate, just pay the man. But in terms of Snacks, maybe there's a kind of a middle ground that can be found here because of how old he is. I mean, he's what, 31 now?
30.
30?
Yeah.
So he's on the wrong side of that age mark, of that benchmark. So instead of maybe you give him an extra year and you fully guarantee the whole damn thing. It's got 2 years left, I think, this year, next season.
Year, next season.
So you give him another year, you fully guarantee the whole damn thing. Everybody's happy, bada boom, bada bing. You don't have a 34-year-old defensive lineman on your roster. Now you look good. Now you look like you're an organization that knows what the hell they're doing. Because you don't hold on to guys too long. You don't let guys go too early and on bad terms. Now you look like you know what you're doing. Pay them. Their impact on the field is obvious. And when they're not there, it's even more obvious. Before Snacks got there, what was our run defense like? Andrew, want to inform the fans? Yeah. When he came back, I'm pretty sure not when he came back, but when he got into town, they were like top 5 in run defense from the minute he got there.
Yeah.
That's a big difference. Big difference. And God forbid, look at the secondary when Slay's there. Holy hell.
Talk about a difference. I will never forget the one play.
I'm sorry, but Rashad Melvin ain't going to work out wide against guys like Antonio Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster.
I will never forget the one play. It was Lions-Saints playoff. I believe it was 2012. It was a wild card playoff. And I think this was when our secondary was close to its all-time worst. We had a really good defense that year in general. But there was one play, and I cannot remember the corner's name, but he'd been a problem on the squad for a while, but all season at least. I don't remember this play. Drew Brees throwing downfield, and the wide receiver making two cuts, one on the left, one on the right, and the corner literally spun around like a top, just like didn't know where the ball was, and got beat, and then got ready for a touchdown.
Oh God!
They didn't see that happen again after we got Slay. So
that's because he, has some kind of awareness. Yeah. But no, in terms of guys like that, just figure out a way to get it done.
Yeah,
they're invaluable to your organization, not just on the field, but in the locker room as well. People love Snacks. Fans love Snacks. Dude's awesome. You ever seen this guy on Twitter? He's awesome. Dude did a whole snack bracket. That's amazing. We need that here in Detroit. People that are good to the fans on Twitter, that like talking to and interacting with people on Twitter, not ones that go after them. Hell, Eric Ebron, if he still had a Twitter, I don't know if you saw that, he deleted his Twitter.
I think it was Aaron Berry, by the way, that corner, but continue.
Okay. But I don't know if you saw Eric Ebron deleted his Twitter, but if the dude was still chirping at Lions fans this offseason. We don't want that. We like guys that like to interact and be happy with the fans and have a good time. And we love guys that make snack brackets. Because who doesn't love good snacks?
I'm done with you. All right. Anything else to add before we close out the show here?
No, that just about covers it.
Doesn't love good snacks.
I mean, how else you going to end the show?
Okay. All right. Anyway, thank you for tuning in to our episode of the podcast. Next week, we'll bring you guys our Pistons draft preview. We'll cover a bunch of draft prospects for the Pistons. But until then, tune into our bi-weekly show every Monday and Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, www.twitchtv.com/thefanreport, where we're doing a mock draft tonight. We'll do another mock draft on Thursday. So tune in.
You did the link wrong. It's www.twitch.tv/thefanreport. You just kind of threw the whole link together.
Sure. Anyway, follow us on Twitter @RealFanReport.
Let us know if there's any topics you guys really want us to dig into on the podcast as well, because we'd love to have your guys' input, and we'd love to have you guys, we'd love to be able to have a little bit more connection with you guys as well. If there's a burning question you guys have, feel free to let us know. We'll answer it on the pod. Or sports related or not. If you want to know what color shirt I'm wearing, well, it's gray. Yeah. It's actually a 2004
theme ended.
Yeah, whatever. It's actually a 2004 Pistons championship shirt. So
there you go.
But anyways, guys, thank you for listening. We'll catch you guys next week. Have a good one.
Peace.